Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Missions Monday. Across the street and around the world, we're talking missions, one of our favorite topics. And for the next few weeks, this is going to be kind of exciting. We're doing kind of a how to series. I mean, we kind of teach this, we kind of live this, we kind of preach this, but sometimes to be a little bit more specific about a specific topic. And to talk about it. So we're going to walk through some how to's, some mission how to's, kind of like a combination of prep for team life, church planning, and a variety of other classes, kind of encapsulated in different topics that hopefully will be very helpful to you. And there's a lot of folks who watch us who are not involved with Greater Grace Missions, but this might be a help to you as well. So we begin today with how to start a mission. And we'll have a devotional. I'm in studio here with Pastor Manny Harrison, who started several missions, and we'll be talking about that today. So first, he'll kick us off with a devotional. Pastor Manny.
Welcome. I think it was last Wednesday, Pastor Schaller at a service shared on Psalm 27, 4, and I can't get that out of my mind. Actually, it's an old song, if you want to call it old. But it's one thing have I desired, of the Lord, and that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty and to inquire in his temple. And just kind of thinking about actually there's the same word that's used there twice. Seek after and inquire is the same root word that that same word that I will seek after, and then I will inquire in his temple. In 1 Samuel chapter 30, one of my go-to favorite portions of scripture, like that, where David is, at a very low point in his life. Everything's gone, everything's taken away. Everybody kind of around him wants to stone him, but it said that David built himself up in the Lord, and then he went and inquired of the Lord. He sought after, and the word inquired is to seek after, and with a question, is seek after with a request. And that's so important in our lives as believers, in every aspect of our life.
Sure.
That in James chapter 1 speaks about, if anyone lacks wisdom, then you ask of God. And it says that he upbraideth not. And that word upbraideth, it means that God doesn't get tired of that. God doesn't look down at that or gets impatient with it. You asking me again?
Not you.
You again? And it's like, no, that's not God. God loves it when we come seeking him. Zeteo, seeking first the kingdom of God in Matthew chapter 6, that to seek God earnestly, to seek God first, to seek God early, to seek God at all times. And I think that's so key in our lives as believers, as our lives as husbands, missionaries, pastors, whatever you are doing, businessmen, to seek God. I know a lot of very godly friends that are in business, and they're always seeking God in their business, seeking God in the details of life. And so important. And it says that in James chapter 1 that we ask, and nothing, and we ask by faith, nothing wavering. It's like that word speaks of overthinking, double-mindedness, or overthinking things, but to think with God. And this is actually what our life statement is as believers, is that we are seeking after God's thoughts, seeking God's mind in situations and circumstances, and that to be able to discern the will of God. And when it comes to missions, so oftentimes we have an idea of oh, where am I going to go? But it's like much more of I remember listening to a message from Pastor Stevens recently, but about the open doors of God, and that it's like an open door. It's not necessarily the will of God, but it's just a test to see if I can think with God, to see if I am seeking God and His perfect will for my life. And it's like something that I go after, and we won't be perfect in it
Hmm.
in our you know our experience.
Hmm.
But God loves the fact that we are, seeking Him, trusting Him as often as much as we can with
Hmm.
all our hearts, and not leaning on natural understanding, not evaluating things by sight, or evaluating ourselves, evaluating the circumstances, evaluating what's before us by sight. But we're seeking God,
Mm.
and it's so important for us, in all simplicity. And in doing that, it's in simplicity, joy. I think simplicity, joy, peace, patience,
Hmm.
that we can, even especially when it comes to starting a work in our lives, or even starting a business, or even at the beginning of a marriage, or even in the middle of the marriage, that to have patience for ourselves, have that, that
Hmm.
and have peace, the fruit, peaceable fruits of righteousness, which we seek from God. And that, just thinking of, there is a yoke, but it's easy. There is a burden, but it's light.
Mm.
And to inquire, to ask of God. And I love recently, Pastor Schaller had pointed out, the goings on in heaven, what we will be doing for eternity. Now
Mm.
we have this idea that for eternity we're going to be worshiping God and hallelujah, prostrate, and and then like but it's like, no, there's going to be conversations.
Hmm.
We're going to have conversations with God.
I'll talk to you.
Going to ask Him questions, and God's like, get out of here. No, it's not. Like, oh yeah, He's going. Yeah, we can fellowship, and you're going to inquire, and we're going to have conversations with God, and we're going to be able to ask Him, why. We're going to be able to ask Him what, and all these things, and have the freedom to do so. And I love that about grace, and being rooted and grounded in the love of God, and having the boldness to enter into the, boldness to enter into the presence of God, into the throne, as we, as His child, and as His son, and as His daughter, that we can ask, and when it comes to the will of God, we can ask when it comes to relationships, or yeah, starting a work,
Hmm.
you know, uh, in mission field, or domestic, domestically, that hey, we just ask of God, and so it's not necessarily where, but it's like what are we going to do?
Hmm.
Well, I'm going to ask God, right? And
Hmm.
we're going to ask God, what we're going to do here, wherever we're at. What am I going to do? What is it? And that we go and inquire, and we go into the presence of God, and we build ourselves up. That's so key. We are built up in who we are in God by faith. God declares that we have that ability, and then we go to God, and we have the freedom to ask, okay, shall I pursue?
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
shall I go? And God says go, or God says no, and then I'm at peace with that, and it's simple, and I'm at rest with it. And I just, yeah, they talking about this in church service yesterday, and that the yoke is easy, the burden is light, and I know God, and I have rest. That's so key in a work, isn't it?
Sure.
In every aspect of our lives, whether we're starting a new business, or our marriages, or raising a family, that we are confronted, or we have this thing before us, that we are at rest with who God is, and it's not striving and straining and stressing and anxiety filled kind of adventure, but
Hmm.
it's like we're at rest with God. There is a yoke, it's easy. There is a burden, it's light, and it's God.
Mm.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Amen. That's great words. I like that. And it's fortuitous for us that Pastor Manny stopped right there, because where he stopped is where we want to begin today. We want to, for the purpose of this program, because this topic is gigantic, we're going to kind of truncate a little bit. So we're going to have some presuppositions that basically you have heard from God, you have sought of the Lord, and you're pursuing, and that you've been sent by your local assembly. And that's important also, that you're not just leaving, but that you've been sent. So, okay, I've heard from God. God has been clear about where I'm going to go. The where is already situated. The what, is it the will of God? Yes, it is. My church is behind me. My leadership is behind me. Next steps. Now I'm landing however, if I'm doing local missions, I begin ministering in the area where I'm at. If I'm going to be moving, I move to the state or the country where I'm going to land, and I've officially landed. We're going to talk about starting a work from landing, boots on the ground, real landing. So, Pastor May, let me ask you this thought: what to bring? I think sometimes I don't, for my own sake. I remember my first time I went to Africa. I went to Uganda, and half the things in my suitcase I shouldn't have brought, didn't need, was already there. I didn't have a clue, really. I didn't think through. It's kind of like, when you go on a trip and you pack and you don't know what to bring, even more so because you're moving to a mission field. You're moving to a place, and you're not just moving because you're visiting where you're thinking about, okay, I need to have this outfit, that outfit, but you're also thinking about, okay, what can I bring that will actually enhance the work there? What can I bring that I can't get there? What's going to help me in the mission? So what do I bring?
Yeah. Hey, thank God we're in the day and age where we don't pack our belongings in a coffin.
And that's how you start Missions Monday, coffins.
Yeah. Hey, isn't that what the legacy of
Yes.
Africa missions, or even missions back in the
Yes.
1800s, that
Mhm.
everything, you put anything that fits in the coffin. You got to have a coffin just
Wow. Coffin ministries.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. That's kind of fair, easy, but yet, how do you pack? What do you bring? I think the various, well, today it's with the advent of the internet. There's so many things that you don't have to bring as what you had before. I remember when we, going to South Africa, and even in the Philippines, but in South Africa, you were bringing concordances, and videotapes, and all these things, and then it went down to DVDs and CDs, and yeah. So the essentials.
We could count that. That could be the first one. I would say either bring materials for study, for study materials for your own life, or if you're a communicator. So we could say that there might be external hard drives. You could say classes, messages, things like that. Okay, so we might call that media. We might call that books, like maybe a spare Bible. If you have one Bible and you bring that one Bible and something happens to that Bible, then you're out of, you might not find that Thompson Shame so easily to get, or the Hebrew Greek Study Bible. So books, and also keep in mind too, things like weight matter, customs matter, things about the rules for what you can bring and what you can't bring in a country or wherever you're going for that matter. So okay, that's one.
Don't bring an air conditioner. I know we know. So we have a friend that brought air conditioner. I don't know.
If you can get an air conditioner through customs,
we had air conditioners, microwaves, and televisions at one time.
Yep.
Some people brought, but hey, yeah, it's hard to. Well, we have to think in lines of what the like a rapid deployment. Get military here.
okay,
Rapid deployment, 82nd Airborne. You land,
okay,
and there's not much for resources as far as we
Okay.
know. And the basic things. I don't think we don't want to bring like a library of things, but like what we have, fortunately, everything. There's a lot of stuff that's very compact now.
okay.
You don't have to bring a library.
Maybe hopefully if you're moving to a location that you've been before, you have an idea about the kind of clothes that you want to bring, because more often than not you're not going to find clothes, maybe not your size or maybe not your style or your comfortability. So you kind of idea about what you need to bring clothes wise. Shoes, more often than not, you bring one good pair of shoes and you find out that those shoes don't work very well, or they do work, but they're the only pair you got. So think about shoes. Can you
Yeah.
do a lot of walking?
Yeah, practical things, especially especially with ladies.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, can't can't bring the high heels. You think?
Yeah, yeah. I would say if you're starting a mission and what to bring, at some point, if you're part of a team, there should be a conversation about what you can bring and what you can't bring. That will help you. During your visits, you can start to see what's there, what's not there. I know it sounds obvious, but it's not obvious. And
No.
there's no books, there's no training manual that says that. That's why we're kind of being a little laborious here with what to bring, because a lot of folks, frankly, don't know what to bring. Some guys come dressed like a tourist. They get the latest gadgets online. The name is waterproof, bulletproof jackets with hats with the holds a bottle of water. It also holds my entire life savings at the same time, and you're not dressed. You're dressed for some fictitious field when really, how do the people that are there dress? How do they live? I mean, that's a big stein as far as can you live that way? So what to bring, I think,
Yeah.
would cover your clothes. Um, you may all, if there's something particular that you know is unique to you that might be hard to get, you might bring extra of that. You might want to also bring, I wouldn't recommend if you have a phone, you have your main phone, that you bring that phone. Maybe get a cheaper phone, a throwaway phone, that if you lost that phone, you have a backup. Some people even come with one phone and a backup phone and all the information on both phones in case they lose one, they're okay. You may want to also, depending on the country that you're in, it's not a bad idea to register with the embassy in that country, from in your embassy in that country, for that matter. That helps whenever there's any kind of information of things that are happening in that country. You get emails that tell you this is happening, that is happening when you're living abroad. The what to bring is very, very important, because you can't expect that where you're going is going to have the things you want or the things you need. And there may be also a specific type of outreach or a specific type of ministry that you want to engage in, but there's certain materials that you need to bring with you. You're not going to have them there. It could be a special kind of a Sunday school. You'll be surprised how many basic materials like dry markers and different things are very hard to get or very, very
Yeah, certain
expensive.
places, yeah.
Yeah, so like you want to do your due diligence. Like when you visit a country or you visit a state or you visit somewhere, if you see something you want to do, think about, do I need to bring these materials with me or can I get them there?
Yeah, I mean, we've had these instances where people like to do outreach with um, the boards, the
Sketchboards, yes.
sketchboard. Do you bring one, or is there a possibility of being able to make one there?
That's true.
And
That's true.
hey, there's we don't. There's a lot of wisdom in doing research and what's available and what's not available in the place we would go, and what would be a priority as far as what we want to do in the short term, the
Right.
first 6 months or
Sure.
first year. What is it that we would want to do? How is it that we would want to approach our evangelism, our outreach? Do we want to start doing Bible college classes in the very beginning? Offering that and having that available. So those things are definitely something to consider, something to plan and figure out. How is it that what is it that we need to bring? And are these things I love Pastor Brent recently when I went to go spend some time with him in Colombia. He wanted to do an outreach with cornhole. The cornhole game.
Okay, for those of you who don't know what cornhole is, because obviously it's not global, it's basically a board with a hole in the middle, and you stand about 20 meters back with a bag full of sand, and you toss it toward the hole. And the goal is to throw the bag in the hole, and you compete with somebody else. That's cornhole.
Yeah, and it's equipment that needs to be well, we got wood and then built a few sets of that, and it's been an effective part of his ministry there. So just these practical things, that we can be able to do that, and then we could able to build it there, and
Okay.
those type of things. So uh yeah, pulpits.
Yeah, I would say usually you can build a pulpit, but you can bring if you really want to. But I think also too, talking to experienced missionaries.
Mm,
Um, Visiting. So let's do it this way. Number one, if you're going to visit the country before you move, you can see that will help you give you some intel on what's there, what's not there. Number two, having a team meeting about what to bring, because if you have a lot of things you want to bring, you can divide the weight up among you so that it's
yeah.
not one person carrying everything. Number three, you can also talk to experienced missionaries. Okay, how did you guys do this? How did you figure this out? How did you take this? Or you're going to want to bring this with you, or you're not. Like for instance, when I went on this first missionary field, I went on an experienced missionary said to me, "Bring a can opener." I'm thinking, come on, a can opener. And when I got there, I realized how rare at the time a can opener was. It's like there's cans of everything everywhere, but guys are using all kind of knives and weapons to open cans. He said a can opener will make the difference. Just a handheld crank, the small little things you
Yeah,
might find. One year we were talking about doing pizza outreach where we'd have a couple over the house every Friday and make pizza. And just a simple,
pizza
yeah,
slicer.
you may find in the kitchen there's certain little things like even a spatula, little small things, a cast iron pot, cast iron frying pan is ultra rare, and you can do anything with it. Just little
It's
small
That's
things.
a lot of weight.
Yeah, it's weight. Don't get me wrong, but again, if you want a team and you spread the weight out and all, you want to benefit. I remember we used to bring things like boxes of muffins, different things, candles for birthdays, just little small things. You really have to sit down and think through the mission.
Mm.
Think through your mission to the nationals. Think through your operation, your living among the nationals. Think through your operations as a team, and then these things, these little small things, they start to come.
Yeah. I don't know. It's I found this out in the Philippines that I knew about it before then, but that they have this service, and you can go to any Asian store, Filipino store, and you have these. They call it a balikbayan box. You have a
Mhm.
box, and you put anything in it. Doesn't matter what the weight, as long as it fits in the box, and you ship it. It takes about 2 months
Wow.
to get to you, but it's stuff that like
Yep.
a frying pan,
Beautiful.
stuff like that. Or with me, I had these volumes of books that I wanted to have for the library eventually
Nice.
for the people there. So maybe they have that in places for like
Mhm.
especially Asia, maybe even South America,
Yep.
and that to be able to look into those things, because yeah, you can only carry so much,
Yeah.
but if you have something that's inexpensive and it's viable for that area, that look to be able to look into that as far as shipping certain amounts of goods into into the country or the area where you're going.
Beautiful. Another thought I was thinking about is okay, now that I've landed, where do I live? Now, you could have the presupposition that before you move there, you know exactly where you're going to live. But I can tell you right now, 50% of the time, you have a landing place, but that's not the place you're going to probably be living a year from now, 6 months from now. So many times we've landed, we've lived in a hotel, we've lived in an Airbnb, we've lived in a small month-to-month rental place until you find a permanent place. So how do you tackle the idea of where to live?
After you've landed,
Yeah, like with you're in the country, you're in the location. It could be San Diego, it could be South Dakota, it could be Bucharest, it could be anywhere.
well, what are we there for?
Right, I'm with you.
Right? And so, what are we there for is really, comes to mind of where am I going to live
Okay,
eventually? That we're, as best places as possible to be accessible and
okay,
to have access to others, and as much as, the people. And we want to be in a place where well, yeah, consideration fairly safe, you know.
hmm,
You're not having to lock down your house as much as the normal citizen there. But yeah, it's just where what am I you know what yeah, what am I going to the where is about what am I doing, um do I, I would need to be in a place where there's a simplicity, simple to get to, I would think, and maybe,
Okay.
and also simple for people to maybe have access to me.
I think
Maybe not so important. But
there's this dualistic question of where to live and where to meet, and I think you've kind of answered them both. Okay, so if there's areas that I'm targeting because I want to reach specific people, and to be honest with you, I think you know this, you can't reach everyone.
Mhm.
Your desire is to reach everyone, but you want to put it in place where you can reach the most people conveniently and safely. Okay, where where the most people are the most open. So you're considering, okay, where to meet. And I would say, and I'm not sure, Pastor Manny, but maybe where I'm meeting at is more important than where I'm living at.
right.
Only because where I'm meeting at is where people are coming to me more so than where I'm living at. They're not coming to me where I'm living at so much. But if I know where I'm meeting at, I want to live relatively close to where I'm meeting at,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So where you're meeting at is important. I would say where you're meeting at is more important than where you're living at, primarily because that's where you're backing away from. Because we've made this mistake, we picked a place where we're meeting at, and the closest place that we could afford to live at was an hour away. It was just a nightmare, transportation wise. People can't get to you. So the first place is where you meet at, because you may find that where you live, there's no place to meet anywhere near you. So it's better off to find the place where you meet first, and then back yourself out of that and find a place to live. And Pastor Manny made a great point about where to meet at, where people can get to me, which sounds like major cities. Major cities or major parts of the city. It's rare. It could be the will of God to be out far away from the main cities. It could be a unique call, but most of the time, particularly when you have a Bible school, you want to put yourself in the city. The challenge with that is in the city, there aren't neighborhoods. There aren't, it's hard for you to knock on doors. It's hard. You can do street evangelism in town, but you won't go where people live because most folks don't live in the city. So that's kind of the juxtaposition that you have where we're meeting in the city where everybody can get to us, but we're doing outreach a little further out as far as door knocking is because there's just nobody in the town. Like we were in Zambia, we were in the city, and everyone from all over the city came to us in Lusaka. But then we realized where we're meeting at, there's no neighborhoods, there's no doors, it's just businesses.
Mm.
So to go out to knock on doors was 25 minutes. So we ended up having to move the church from town into the neighborhood, but close enough to the city that those that were coming in the city could still come to the area. Now we lost some people. We lost about 45, 50 people when we moved because of the condition and the valuable lesson. Where you meet is important, more important than where you live, because you can almost live anywhere really within reason. But where you meet, that's how you're going to build the work. So where you meet, I think, is a priority. Like you said, accessibility. I've got to be able to get to people. They've got to be able to get to me. And if you're talking about a third world situation or second world situation, they can travel half an hour, 45 minutes to you. But if we're talking about a first world situation, we're talking about they may not travel a half an hour.
Mm.
It might be too far. Half an hour might be the cutoff. Okay, so if I'm meeting here at this location, the majority of my folks are going to come from within a half an hour of me.
Yeah. And there's some practical aspects of the where,
Okay.
of the location. I also want to take in consideration the setting of the whatever the building or whatever the venue is.
Yes.
That is it a place that I can, for lack of a better word, have people hang out.
Okay.
Can we, I want to be, my mindset is, I can meet here, but can I also be can I linger there
Okay.
after church?
Mhm,
Because
mhm.
isn't that what our mission, our legacy is about?
Yep.
We're not just talking, coming in preaching and then
Yep.
goodbye, see you later, but it's investment time.
Yes.
And is that place also a place that I can conduct other meetings
Mhm.
in other times of the day, like
Yep.
another midweek church service,
Mhm,
or
mhm.
is it also a place that I can eventually have Bible college classes.
Yes.
So those are the thoughts, and might not all work out that same way. And also, I've seen this on the mission field too, where I'm meeting, we're having church services. About 4 or 5 other churches having church services. Sometimes that can't be avoided, but it's
Yeah.
like, boy, what a challenge that is, especially when
Yes.
you don't have a sound system and everybody else does, and they're singing and they're singing and shouting for a whole hour when you're just
Sure.
you're just trying to get into the message. So yeah, those kind of considerations too.
So what I mean is important, right? It's very, very important.
Yeah.
And then where you live. I mean, on the living question, let's park there for a second. What are your thoughts about Team House?
Very temporary.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's very viable. Depends too on the type of house it is. If
Okay.
it's something that someone can live in the same house, but they don't necessarily have to come into my space. As far as like say a pastor and his wife,
Okay.
they have access to their own space. It could be part of the same house.
Okay.
That's yeah. I think it's you know especially when it comes to couples,
Hmm.
married couples that that they have their own space.
Okay.
I think maybe when we land, there could be something, and it's understood that there's this is something that is temporary. We kind of did that in South.
Yes, we
We
did.
did that in South Africa. We all lived in the same house, but
Mhm.
eventually, you guys moved into your own place. So, yeah, I think it's it all. It, as far as my mindset is, yeah, temporarily, but it also depends on the particular, what kind of the setting is, and
Okay.
but that would be the goal, to
So
not.
team houses are temporary landing places, if what I'm getting from you. So which I think is safe, it's secure, it promotes unity, but I think like you said, um, at some point people need to get their own places. There's not a hard and fast rule about that. Most of the time it can be 3 months, it can be 6 months. It really depends upon the capacity of your team and also the size of your team. I remember in Zambia we had as many as 13 people,
Mhm.
and we were as small as 2. So it really kind of varied with the size. But with a team house, it's a people arrive. The thing with landing is that you don't all land at the same time.
Mhm.
It's a staggered arrival and a staggered departure. So somebody arrives, they've got a place. Someone else arrives, they land there. Hopefully that's synchronized. They land there. Maybe someone else comes. They land there. They're there for a season. They get acclimated. They find a place and then they move. Um, but keeping in mind that the plan is for you to move. You might be more sensitive, maybe with a female team member, a single female versus a single guy. It might be more sensitive with a couple. It'd be harder for them to find a place. Or they may feel the need to move sooner
Mm.
than say a single person might. The single person might fit in better. Um, all of this is important in the beginning because now once you start moving out, based on where you're meeting at and where you live, everyone that moves out, they've got to find places to live that are also close to where you meet because that's going to directly impact outreach, all the things that you do, how we hang out. These are good questions to answer and think about, and the program doesn't really have all the answers for you on that, but they're things that you should consider: where you meet, where you live, living alone, team house. These are good questions. These are good talking points, good things to think about. Um, Another thought I'm thinking about, Pastor Manny, is governmental responsibilities. If you are living in a foreign country, you're starting a new mission in a foreign area, or I would even say in a foreign state or a different city, you may find that the rules of operation for your ministry might be different in that state or different in that country. Things such as work permits, which gives you permission to stay in the country and operate
Mm.
legally in the country as a minister of the gospel. Um, uh, through the church that you're building or the church that's bringing you in. Church registration is also important. Even if you're in the same country, you may have to register the church individually. Church registration also is important. With a trend that's happening now, most countries with church registration, they don't register churches. What they do is they make you incorporate your church, and then they register the incorporation of your church. So that when you get your work permits, it's not a religious work permit. Some of the most of the newer countries, it's a work permit that would go for anybody else for any other reason. The same work permit that somebody for business would get, you also get, because they're incorporated and you're incorporated. They just homogenized it all into one. It used to be separate, where you had religious. You're here for religious purposes. You get a religious church registration. You get work permits based upon that. But now it's all one. Whether you're a church, whether you're a mining company, whether you're a grocery store, we're operating in the country with a business. Now it's all one registration for everybody. Applies for the same registration, and you all get the same work permit.
Southern Africa.
East, west, everywhere. It's pretty big actually. Now it's spreading. They're not doing so much religious work permits because a lot of guys would come in the country and operate under that and do business. So they said, oh, if you're going to do that and we can't police that, we're just going to put you all under one. So governmental responsibilities are important. You want to be able to run your ministry, your mission legally. You want to be able to run it in accordance with governmental authority in Romans chapter 13. You want to find out what that is. You want to begin that process before you get there. The work permits may take time, but the registration and incorporation, that should happen before you land. That's like a prep thing.
Of course, if you're, called to a particular type of country that, that doesn't allow, it's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah. We're trying to deal with the countries that are gospel friendly.
Are you gospel friendly?
Yeah. We're not gonna talk about the countries where you go to register your church and you're in handcuffs. No, we're not going there. So that's important. Don't get so romantically glossed over. You're just gonna land and they're gonna have their arms open. You know what? We don't have a position for you, but stay as long as you want. That you're here for God. We want to do our due diligence. We want to be responsible spiritually.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. And also, if the people that eventually become members of the church,
yes,
that it gives them a sense of, oh, okay, there's permanency to this.
Yes,
you're a foreigner or you're somebody that's from out of state or not from there, and so I don't know you, but here you are. You're starting a church. Is this something that's going to be around for a while, or is this just like another another thing going through?
They have a name for those called mushroom churches.
Mushroom churches?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the minds of if you want to call it the natives or the locals, that it's like gives you a sense of permanency when you've gone through the research and gone through the whole process of the legalities. You're looking at it as something serious. You're not just this guy, like I just said, have this romanticized idea that I'm just going to just show up. Doing everything decently and in order, and I think that's honorable. And I think oftentimes when we're in the process of doing that, maybe the governmental authorities are like, oh, okay, they're more of a tendency to, pull for you.
Amen.
I just remember in South Africa for the very beginnings of it, I would, we'd be leaving, we'd go and do something, go to the country next door, come back they did that for a season. Then it's just like I went and bothered to even research, what it is I needed to do to gain some sort of permanency as far as my status. And like, it was so simple to, get a missionary visa, applied for it and got it. And that was that,
Beautiful.
So, and then also, also the registration of the church. And again, all in the spirit of that this is something that we have a mindset to see through, that we're here as a missionary. We're here as a minister. Here as a ministry to stay, and we're here. It's serious business. And that we're going to, as much as we can, do things decently, in order, openly, and properly, and lawfully. And I think there's much to be said about that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm landing, and there could be. This is so interesting. It could be 2 of us. It could be 15 of us. Schedule.
Yeah. A schedule. Yeah. Yeah. I've just many I've heard of and spoken to many people in reference to their schedules out on the mission field, what they experienced.
Mhm.
Yeah, schedule, very very important. Again, it's each one is unique, but I think it's as a pastor, a leader, very
Mhm.
important for me to establish that mindset for myself.
Yes.
That we're going to have a schedule.
Hmm.
What am I doing here? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
And that if we don't have or have a goal to have a schedule or start with a schedule, we need to do that. It's very essential. Can't have be haphazard, and it's all for our own sakes.
Mhm.
I know I myself need a schedule,
Right.
as far as accountability,
Yep.
to God, accountability to the team members, and to the church, to the body of Christ, and that we're there for a purpose, and this is our schedule. Our schedule is now. Each team, each situation will be different. There's
Yes.
some people are going to have uh, you know, some people have a very light schedule in a sense of some people. Some teams will end up where there's a certain members of the team have they have to do work, with the work permits. You have some sort of employment. They have to dedicate a certain amount of time to that, and so to be able to manage that, okay, so you're going to be working with these hours of that, and then what can we do as a team? Where are we going to get everybody together? And are we going to have morning devotionals? Are we going to get
Mhm.
together?
Mhm.
Are we going to get together at lunch? Was there a break? When's our day off? Are you going to have the
Mhm.
same day off, or
Mhm.
stuff like that? So yeah, to especially as the leader, to consider this and to have that mindset. It's healthy for myself, and it's healthy for the team to have an actual schedule,
Okay.
and that way things are defined. What my accountability as a both a pastor and a missionary and a team member, my accountability is defined.
Yeah.
I have definition, and
Also,
I,
people have something that they can follow you. There's a methodology where someone they want to be with you. There's a consistency where they can find you.
right, yeah,
3 basic schedules. I wrote these down. I want to suggest these 2. There's your personal schedule. Pastor Mays mentioned that. That's your walk with God and your schedule with God. And in some respects, that's fluid because the Holy Spirit leads specifically and succinctly. But at the same time, it's also there's certain parts that are not fluid. Like there's a bit of structure in there. Okay, I'm gonna prayer with God in my mornings are going to begin this way. There's a personal schedule. Okay, then there's the team schedule. How we, no matter how small we are or how large we are, we interact. We interact together for purposes that may and may not include the church. Like our team meeting may not include the church, or our devotional may not, but it may. So there's the team schedule. We might all go take a trip somewhere on a day off, but that, again, that's the team schedule. Then there's the church schedule. The church schedule would be the publicized schedule that someone who's interested in our church or our mission, this is what we do and this is when we do it. And so that we're trackable, we're traceable, we're accountable, as Pastor Manny said. And it promotes unity between us and those we're trying to reach. So
yeah,
that's a good topic.
yeah,
Schedules.
yeah, and it gives definition, and I
Yep.
think most of us function very much better with definition in
Yes,
our
sir.
lives. We need things defined.
Okay, now we got a schedule. Okay, we got a place to live, we got a place to meet, we got a schedule. We're working on the government responsibilities. Tracks. Well, there has to be a way for people to, number one,
Yeah.
get our message beyond our mouths, because our tracks can reach more people than our mouths can. Number two, there has to be a way for people to track us down after we use our mouth. If they've heard about us, there's got to be a way for them to find out about us, to communicate, to track us down. Many, many times around the world, people have found our tracks, and through our tracks, they've gotten saved and tracked us down. So, identification purposes, presentation purposes, the gospel, identification purposes, information, and also to a certain extent, something or tangible that they can walk away with that's representative of who we are. That might give them a sense, like you said, of permanency. You didn't just meet me in the street and I said a few words to you and I walked off. I gave you something that's tangible that you can put your hands around and look at later, and you can look at that and think about. So tracks are important. There's two ways to do tracks. You can make your own track. It's relatively inexpensive now versus 20 years ago or 10 years ago. You can make a track that's really geared toward a specific group of people you're trying to reach, or you can make a track that's more generalized that includes all your basic information with the gospel, or you can get tracks that have been made by someone else and put your information on it. I don't recommend that with tracks, because when you use someone else's tracks, their information is also on that track too. So you can mislead people with multiple addresses and multiple names. And you don't, it's a little bit creatively inflexible. Whatever they decide to put there, it's there and you're using it. Sometimes when you first start out in the work of God, you don't have a choice. You've got to use somebody else's tracks because you haven't made tracks yet. But to be honest with you, Pastor Manny, you can walk into a copy center, you can walk into an internet cafe, you can walk in any place, and in an hour you can make tracks.
Yeah. And we're boy, there's been a whole world opened up as far as like connecting. Tracks, like what you said, it's all about connecting.
Yes.
We have the the pages, the websites, building a website, those type of internet type hookups, and that those are very included in the track. So just like so to be to even I think even before you even, I don't know, you have a place that you maybe a permanent place you can meet. At least they have a way of getting in touch with you.
Yes.
And connecting with you. And it all depends on who you're trying to reach, what type of track it is. But it's so important to have that information, because it's one thing to speak with somebody. It's one thing to maybe even lead somebody to the Lord, but it's another thing to get back in contact with them and have a ability to be able to continue, and that's what's missing often in evangelical settings, where you have you get people will respond, and people will say yes and maybe and get saved, but it's like that's the returning and coming back and being able to contact you, or having a place where having a place to meet. So there's some and it's good. And I just know, and we have we've had access to some amazing basic tracks, and to be able to put our own information in there. But to be able to come up with your own, and have that, hopefully you have someone part of the team, or someone within the within the organization, to be able to produce those type of things for your particular mission is very relevant and very important.
Yep. Awesome. Just a few thoughts about tracks. Colored paper works better than plain paper. One sheet works better than a book. You want to have information you want to be succinct and brief about who you are and what you have, and your gospel message as well. Just some thoughts about that. Now there's all kind of things you can put on a track, a QSR code, a link. There's all kind of things you can put on a track now that can really, really help you and get your message out. But you definitely need to have something tangible. As much as we are a digital society, people still tend to hold on to physical things, particularly the second and third world. They're not as digital as say we are. So there's got to be a way to reach them and leave them with something.
Yeah, we just say it's important to have a certain quality.
Yes, quality is there.
A certain quality of paper. It's not
Well,
like
quality of paper. Just be honest with you, get some input. There's guys that do this a lot, media, creative guys on the team, maybe in the area. And there's some little small things like language. Certain parts of the country may use certain type of language that another part doesn't. So you're not going to make a universal track like in Zimbabwe. You wouldn't take a Shona track into an Ndebele area. They wouldn't even read it. They wouldn't even receive it. So you got to be really sensitive about your tracks, what you put on your track. How is this perceived culturally? How is this perceived nationally? These are thoughts to think through. Pastor Benny kind of taps into what I want to talk about next. The internet, as far as reaching people, winning people, investing in people, radio, TV, newspaper, all of these things are media.
Mhm.
Today's mission is more media oriented than ever before. Basically, if you're not involved in media on any level, then you're invisible, because a lot of today's people under the age of 50 and even over the age of 50, they're media oriented. Most of their decisions about life are heavily influenced by media. So to ignore media, you do your mission a disservice.
Mhm.
So there's got to be creative ways that I can. It could, like you said, a website. It could be a podcast. It could be a Zoom. It could be a restream. It could be QSR codes. It could be all kind of different technical ways to reach people. You could do radio. It might be expensive. We've done radio before. In Uganda, we've done radio in Zambia. We've done radio before, television. We've done television before. Newspapers are always good. Most folks don't join a church because they've read a newspaper article, but you might be able to promote the Bible school a little bit that way. But again, I still say digital, WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, some of the other different podcasts. Those are ways to reach people. This very program, for instance, these are just ways to reach people where they're at.
Yeah, and people get excited about, oh, hey, I know that guy, or
I've seen it before.
I know all of those people. Those are the people I talk to. It
Yes.
lends for, I guess, legitimacy. It lends for, just something tangible, like you said, for people to just say, hey, wow, that's good. They have that, and it's I'm over 50, and but it's like,
Oh.
but it takes time, but it takes it's very an important part of ministry now, the Zoom, prayer, even.
Yep.
Just connecting with. Again, it's all about connecting.
Yep.
We as many people as use this a media and the internet and all that to connect, and so to be able to tap into that and to be part of that is very, not today, very normal, and very I would say very necessary.
Okay, let's talk about national contacts. Hopefully, if you're going to say a new area, whether it's in the country or a new area in another country, cultivation of national contacts. Now, we would love to say that when you go to a new place, you already have a bunch of contacts there, but that's not often the case. Often the case, you walk in and you know two people
Right.
in the area, but God has put you there. You've landed, you've moved there, and you don't have a lot of. What are some ways you can cultivate national contacts?
Before going, or after you?
I would
arrive?
say you're there now, but maybe both. Let's look at both.
Isn't it that we're just anywhere and everywhere, right?
Okay.
Knocking on doors.
Okay.
It's there's a supernatural aspect of it, but yet there's also a practical aspect of that.
Yes.
The more doors I knock on, More doors that I knock on, the more open doors.
Okay.
You know, the more people that I speak to, the more apt I'm able to create a contact or create a relationship with people in the whole gamut.
Hmm.
Uh, business people, schools,
Hmm.
government officials. Yeah, I think it's just I don't know. I don't know if that what we're looking for, but my mindset is like, hey, just um, boots on the ground, and be available to just speak to as many and as often and people as possible.
Okay.
I think, especially in the beginning, I think one of the key things with just showing up somewhere as a team or as a as a missionary, that it's so just speak it to, not in a driving sense, but like it's just like speak to as many people as possible.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting. In the beginning, the majority of the folks that come to to the meetings, to the assembly, to the services, are people you have directly had a connection with. The barber, the butcher, whoever, but people you've directly connected. But then
hmm
there's a second level of interested, curious people who you didn't talk to. No one on the team talked to, but they talked to someone else
yeah,
who came. But that first group is all based upon just contacts with the team. That's why that first group is important, because that group lends itself to spread the word to others. So that's important how we handle that first group. To that end, we mentioned the schedule. We mentioned having meeting in the schedule. There's meetings or assemblies or services. Any thoughts about that when you're starting a mission? Any thoughts about the meeting?
um well, uh a schedule, right?
Yeah,
No, it's just like, this was the purpose of the what you're talking about, the church meeting or
yeah,
the church assembly.
church meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. What's how do we conduct a church service? That we have a layout, but it's very conducive to the leading of God. But yet there's a layout, and that where our main emphasis is the study of the word, the preaching of the word. But yeah, as what's so important, that our desires for people to have a place they can hear,
Hmm.
and that and to have that as our emphasis, that that we want people to be discipled in how to hear the word,
Hmm.
to be in a place where they hear the word and an investment of the word, and that we lay out our church services for that. Yes, yeah, and we do have worship, and we have all the particular aspects of a church service, but yeah, start on time,
Okay.
right? No matter if you even if you don't have media, start on time.
Okay.
I think there's a lot to be said about that, and end end in a sense on time.
How long do you think in the beginning? Let's just say the first 6 months. How long do you think the meeting should be?
I would say anywhere, if you yeah you can, if you can be really good and do everything around an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay.
I think it's good. And
Right.
then as I say, if you have a place where people can be able to hang and stay, and that's why but then we get to another level, wraps,
Okay.
and or whether it's there or another place,
Okay.
we're available for people to stick around, for those who want to stick around and ask questions or want something more. You
Okay.
know.
All right. That's a good thought. That's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things we didn't say today, but the goal today was not to be exhaustive or not to be definitive, but to give you some talking points, some things to pray about, some things to think about when you've landed and you're starting the mission. And it's intense, but God is in it. And God gives direction and God gives wisdom. The verse you quoted, James 1:5 and 6, he that lacks wisdom, let him ask of God and let him ask in faith. And I think that's the key. As we close, Pastor Manny, any closing thoughts?
Hey, like I just mentioned, in the very beginning, that it's there's in these things, there's to have a place. It's a place of rest.
Hmm.
We're exercising faith when we go to a mission field, but it's also a place where there's a lot of joy, rest, and to have that mindset that this is not. Yes, we're serious, and yes, this is serious business, but it's like at the same time, there's just like conduct an atmosphere of joy, of rest, and just I don't know. It's a great exercise in life to take steps of faith and to be part of starting something, whether it's a Bible study, locally, or Bible club or anything, and that there's no such thing as failure. If I'm motivated and rooted and grounded in the love of God, and that's my motivation, that I'm loved by God, and this is what I'm doing this for, and I'm inquiring of God, and being, and that conducting myself in such a way that love doesn't fail, where there's no failure in it, and I think that's what holds a lot of people back: fear of failure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Amen. Thank you for joining us as we continue on Missions Monday. We'll be back here next Monday, and we'll keep talking about missions how-tos. See you next week. God bless you.
God bless.